Okay, here's the question for today. What exactly are bacteria and where do they come from? This is an actual image through a microscope of a colony of bacteria. So bacteria are microscopic, although if there are enough of them, sometimes you can see them or you can see their impact on an environment. But the individual bacteria are so tiny you can't see them. They are single-celled organisms, and they're even more simple than what you might think of as a cell because they don't have a nucleus. Instead, they just have one strand of DNA that commands the bacteria and tells it what to do. It's kind of like a computer program or a code. So how is something so small and simple so important? Strength in numbers. Think about this. There are 10 times as many bacterial cells in a human body as there are human cells. Are you grossed out? You shouldn't be. Something else to think about, the percentage of your body mass, your weight. 1 to 3 pounds of what you weigh is bacteria, the weight of the bacteria that are in and on your body. Here's why you shouldn't be grossed out. In your digestive system, there are millions of bacteria that are actually helping you stay healthy. Oh, I have a little typo there. They break down food into forms that are then absorbed by your body. They also produce vitamins and help fight disease. All of this is happening in your body as we speak. So you literally couldn't survive without the bacteria that live inside you. Here's a picture I found on the internet of some grow beds in an aquaponics system. Just like in your body, there are millions of bacteria in other places. These aquaponic grow beds, I had another typo, I'm going to have to go back and edit this. Grow beds are colonized with beneficial bacteria. But how do they get there? How do the beneficial bacteria get there? What do you think? I'm just going to have a sip of my coffee here while you think about, don't Google it, just think about how you think those beneficial bacteria arrive. Okay, well, a better question and an easier one to answer would be, where aren't bacteria living? The short answer is not very many places. Bacteria can live in extreme heat like deep sea heat vents and extreme cold like the Arctic snow. So when we set up a new grow bed in the classroom, there were already bacteria there. They were in the clay, on and in the plants, even in the fresh, clean water before the fish were introduced. So they were already there, but when there is a food source, the bacteria reproduce. They do this by cloning themselves. A single bacteria splits and forms an identical second bacteria. And if there is enough food, they do this over and over and over. Voila! We have a colony of bacteria. In the case of our grow beds at school, there are two types of bacteria that help convert ammonia, which is in the fish urine, to nitrates, which are plant food. When we introduced the fish, there were already some of these beneficial bacteria in the grow beds, and once their food source was plentiful, they began to reproduce by cloning themselves. No background image on this one, I guess. There is such a thing as bad bacteria, but we'll save that for another day. So this is today's question. What do you think happens to the bacteria when their food source goes away? What would happen to the bacteria in the grow bed at school if the fish suddenly went away? And this is exactly what happened, by the way. Do some of them die? Most of them die? All of them die? All answers are correct as long as you can back up your answer with logic. I'll give you an example. I think since earlier in the slideshow we learned that there are bacteria all around us all the time, I think that some of them will survive in the grow bed, and maybe even there's enough food in there to feed some bacteria even without the water circulating. I think eventually, if the grow beds just sit there with no plants in them and no water circulating and no fish, uh, eventually there might be very few bacteria. Well, sorry, my dog's barked. But what very few means, I'm not sure of. And I'm not going to Google it because this response is what I think, based on what I already know and based on my super awesome fifth grader of the universe logic. So please send me 2 paragraphs with what you think happens when the food source goes away, what happens to the bacteria. And those 2 paragraphs can be typed on Seesaw, copied and pasted from a Google Doc. They can be audio. Remember, if it's an audio recording, it should still be 2 paragraphs. Or a video recording, it should still be 2 paragraphs. So, have fun with this one. Please resist the temptation to use the Google machine. I'm not interested in your ability to type questions in on Google. I want to know what you guys actually think.